are now ready to hear from one of our iSPI partners. I have the pleasure of introducing Rebecca Hellmann. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at Olive, where she is responsible for growing the Olive brand across all channels, creating consumer awareness and demand, and furthering the Olive mission to carve $1 trillion out of the cost of healthcare through an AI-powered digital workforce. So please welcome Rebecca Hellmann to the stage.
Break may have been the best thing ever because I'm not sure I was prepared to immediately follow Dr. Kraft. So it was really interesting for me, though. I think he set the stage phenomenally. As I think about where we are and where Olive is in its maturity and the problem that we are solving, it really requires, I believe, the industry to think about reimagining a different future. And so I'll take you through a little bit about how we think about that and why we think it's valuable. Before I get started, I just want to thank you for the time. This has been probably some of the best 24 hours I've spent lately in my professional career. I've spent 20 years in healthcare. I'm a mother of 4, one of which was just diagnosed with a chronic condition this year. And so it's been nothing short of inspiring to be in the room. And I'm very grateful to all of you for the energy you're providing, the creative thought you're providing, and what you and the organizations you represent are doing. I'll talk a little bit about the problem we see, why we think a digital workforce can help solve that problem, and how we think about Olive and what she's doing. Before I get started, I'll start with a picture. And I have to think that as you look at this employee, you may see some of your own employees in this picture. Talented employees who are spending a lot of their time doing repetitive, mundane tasks, taking information from one place and putting it in another, activities that are critical to your organization's livelihood, but maybe not the best use of our talented resources. And this matters not just because it has an impact on engagement of our employees and retention of our employees, but also has a significant cost. So it's estimated that $1 trillion is spent on healthcare administration. So one of every $3, and I would just ask you, as I've heard throughout the last 24 hours about the limited funding that there is for innovation, how critical is every resource that we have, both our operating spend and our talent, and how might we think about freeing up people from some of the mundane activities we're asking them to do, and thinking more critically about how we reallocate that. The repetitive nature of this we also see show up in attrition. So healthcare has the highest attrition rate, second highest attrition rate out of all industries, the second only to hospitality, and that's about 20% a year. And that has a big impact, a magnitude maybe even more than you might expect. So 30% of hospitals say that they have open jobs that they can't fill. Implication of that is there's activities that are not getting done, or perhaps we're relying on short-term labor, contract labor to fill that need. And so there's work that's just not being done. And then you think about the time it takes to onboard somebody. And the range typically to full productivity for an employee is between 2 months and 6 months. And up until they get to that point of productivity, they're actually costing your organization dollars. And so when you think about the spend, the attrition, the time that it takes to find somebody, get them up to speed, and then actually have them do their best work, and the turnover is 20% a year, it's actually a very large burden, we believe, on hospitals. We believe that a big problem like that requires a fundamental reimagining of our workforce, particularly as we think about the operations within a hospital, and believe that a digital workforce has an opportunity to free up your human workforce, to focus on those activities that require empathy, creativity, engagement, and to get to those activities that are more core to the mission of your organization. It's interesting as we talk with hospitals around the country, some say, why now? And the reality is the short-term opportunity is one of upside. So when we think about how a digital workforce will transform what we think happens in the healthcare industry, first we think it's an upside around capacity. So that work queue that isn't getting done now likely can get done. A digital employee has the ability to work 24 hours a day, error-free, at a rate that is never going to be attainable by a human employee. So there is some immediate capacity increase that happens. What we often then see is the other people are freed up to work at the top of their license. We have a customer who said, now that I've seen what a digital employee can do, my question is always, how can I now deploy the people that are still in my organization on tasks that are more core to my mission? I have people in the community who don't even know the services I provide. What about if we would spend more time educating the community around that? So we believe the next phase of that will be one around job creation. Jobs that we're not even thinking about now will be created as we enable people to work to their full potential. And there will be new organizations that are created that are built from the ground up, leveraging a digital workforce, that aren't constrained with some of the natural constraints we have right now. And that's going to put a real squeeze on traditional healthcare, particularly within the operations of the organization, where we're spending a significant amount of time and a significant amount of investment. So you might think about where you get started. And the first is to look at those tasks within your organization that are repetitive, prone to errors, but yet are high value. So this could be things like checking the status of a claim, checking the eligibility, receiving referrals in, checking the status of authorizations, activities that require employees to go into one place and go into another and move data around. The good news is the activities that are most laborious for human employees are a perfect fit for a digital employee. And that's where Olive comes in. We think about Olive essentially as an analogous human. She operates within the context of the systems that exist within a hospital, whether that be the patient accounting system, the EMR, the ERP. She has user credentials and a login, and she interacts with the humans that surround her. And there's been a lot of talk over the past 24 hours around artificial intelligence, so I'll talk a little bit about how we think about Olive as an artificial intelligence digital employee. And so there's a couple capabilities around that. The first are her hands. So using robotic process automation, that's actually where she does actions, fills out forms, enters information, logs into EMR, looks up information in one and transfers it to another. She has eyes. Through computer vision, she can look at a screen and understand contextually what's happening and gather that information. Documents that come in can be scanned and understood by Olive. Through a new partnership we just introduced, we're getting into the area of conversational AI. So using natural language processing and natural language understanding, Olive actually has the ability to listen and to speak. That will open a whole new set of use cases around call centers or patient reminders. But underlying all of that is her capabilities around the brain, which is the ability to get smarter over time, understand historical behavior, leveraging neural nets to predict future behavior, and then acting upon that information. One of the concepts we laugh about at Olive is a brain in a jar, and often if artificial intelligence can't be acted upon or isn't delivered in a way that has an impact on an organization, and we believe the way that impact is delivered is through Olive's ears, mouth, eyes, and hands. We recently did a study and asked healthcare executives their familiarity with artificial intelligence in the world of RPA and operational improvements. About half said they were unfamiliar. So I just wanted to take a minute and share with you a bit of how we think about the value of RPA and what it is, but yet the difference and the increased capability that comes with the digital workforce. So RPA has task automation, it uses computer vision, and has machine learning, where the extra capabilities that are achieved in a digital workforce are deep learning. So understanding contextually the upstream and the downstream process that exists, understanding contextually that the patient in this system is the same patient in another. An employee should get smarter over time. Your work isn't done when you onboard an employee. If they acted at the same level of competence day one that they did on day 365, you would probably be questioning your hire. So we believe a digital employee needs to get smarter over time and adjust their work as they go. We also believe a digital employee needs to interact with the humans around them and share the information and the learnings that they're realizing. And that's very different than a robot or a traditional RPA solution. This is a quote from our CEO, Sean Lane, who spent some time with this group and had initially hoped to be here and wasn't able to be here. But it's very indicative of our philosophy that the day 2 and beyond is actually the real value that a digital employee provides. And while this technology is emerging, it's having immediate impacts. The dollars that are spent in these functions are significant and have a significant ability to impact revenue, both the collection rate on claims, for example, or better impacting the denied claims rate. So real financial impacts for an organization. I just saw a proposal last night where we were talking to an organization that's about $1.5 billion in PR. So not a small organization, not one of the top either. As they looked at just starting with 3 use cases, they anticipated about a $5 million net benefit value realization annually because of both the inefficiencies that were being realized and the dollars they expected to recoup from 100% coverage of all the activities and the decrease in error rate. So it's significant and we believe fairly practical. When we think about how we deliver on the promise of Olive showing up every day and knowing where to make an impact, doing her work flawlessly and getting smarter over time, we think about it in 3 areas. The Alpha Suite, which is where our technology helps to understand where to start. By looking at the database of candidates for process automation, which is how we think about workflows, we're able to see where are those that are traditionally challenges for organization. What do we think is the economic value that each of those can create? That helps to ensure that we're starting in a space that is immediately able to be impacted. And while the build is fairly commoditized, reality is we need to be able to build these automations quickly. So by leveraging and re-leveraging builds that we've done across other organizations, we're typically able to build this automation in 60 days. So you have quick speed to impact if you compare that to the time it takes an employee to get up to speed and be impactful. But then the real value, we believe, is Omega. And Omega is where the day 2 benefit of a digital employee begins to really impact an organization. Omega never sleeps. This is the 24/7 command center that ensures Olive is doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. And that happens in 3 ways. First is watch, which is looking to ensure that the bot is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, that the anticipated volume is happening, that there are no errors. As soon as that happens, somebody acts upon it, then the next team, the labs team, is actually looking at all of those errors and saying, how do I build that in an enduring fashion to avoid that the next time? So resiliency in bots is actually quite a challenge, and so this is our answer to that. But the real value, I believe, comes in analysis, which is where artificial intelligence is able to look at historical activity, predict out what happens, and starts communicating that in a really impactful and actionable way back to their manager. And I'll give you just a little bit of view upon that. This is an illustrative example of an email that Olive would send, identifying some gaps in claims denials, identifying the source of those, projecting out what the impact of that might be, and asking their manager if she would like Olive to begin working on that. The second stage she does then is say, okay, I did it. Here's the anticipated expectation of value I'll realize. Is there anything else you would like me to do? To me, this is a nice summation both of the action that Olive was doing, the predictive ability to identify where else she could help, and then the very human way in which she interacts with the rest of her staff. I think we have a great opportunity. I have spent, like I said, I think at the beginning, I've spent 20 years in healthcare. I joined Olive about 18 months ago, and never have I been so encouraged about the practicality, but yet the impact of what we're collectively doing. So I very much appreciate the chance to share with you a little bit what we're doing, and would thank you for your time. If you would like to learn more about what Olive is up to, or think about just dialogue a bit on how you might get started, please ping me. I'll be around, or talk with my colleague Marcelo. Thank you very much.